Frame mastery. Why women lose interest in you. Today, you will get the complete solution on what frames actually are, this super important concept in social dynamics. If you don't understand this, it doesn't matter what kind of women you date, no matter how beautiful they are, how right they are for you, they will eventually lose interest in you. They will end up with somebody else. You will find yourself, like I found myself with my ex-wife, in relationships with women where you can't fully be yourself, where you feel dependent, where you'll chase her approval and her validation, and you'll end up being a shell of yourself and you'll live a miserable existence, or you'll be alone forever. But if you understand what I'm about to teach you here today, this absolute masterclass, you can find an amazing woman and not just create and sustain attraction, but genuinely keep her excited and be free in your expression in that relationship as well, so you can be a healthily masculine and loving version of yourself. So we first need to look at what a frame even is. And so instead of just having one definition, I'm starting off with 3 different definitions, because I couldn't get myself to just boil it down to one. And then we're going to look at 15 different geniuses or teachers or various different teachers to look at frame from different angles so you can truly internalize this concept. What is a frame? If we come here for a second and we zoom in, get real close, basically, you can imagine in any social interaction, you have your reality and her reality. That's one way of looking at frame. A frame is a lived, embodied expression of a belief. Next definition. Alternative one. Frame is the ratio of emotional and behavioral adoption between two people. It reveals whose inner world stays stable while the others adjusts. The one who changes less reactively leads the shared reality. If we want to boil it down to the absolute genius, Tony Robbins, whoever is most certain, if there's rapport, will always influence the other person. You may have heard of frame battles, frame control. This is going to give you a better understanding of it. In any social interaction, there's this idea that how you view the world and how she views the world. Let me give you an example. Your belief that's going to give the interaction a meaning, another way of looking at frame, is that I am the prize. Her belief, maybe, I am the prize. Now you have 2 colliding realities. Another one might be, we had that with one of the clients in one of the coaching calls the other day, where a lady had something on her Hinge about an interview process, and you're supposed to submit your interview application via Hinge. And then, in fairness, he only started the program a couple of days ago, so he didn't know that yet. He actually went into that frame, into that reality. Her frame was, I am the interviewer, you're the interviewee, or you're the person applying for the job. Well, that's obviously not a great frame because you're putting her above you. Now, you don't want to put her below you either. In a healthy relationship, you want to be on eye level. But if you go into this frame, if you are more reactive to her than she is to you, attraction dies. Let me say this again. This may be the crux of it, but all these matter. If you don't understand what we're about to go through here, if you don't watch until the end, you are screwed. Really. But if you are more reactive to her than she is to you, if your behavior, your emotions change more in reaction to her than hers does to you, then attraction decreases. Why? Well, because women want stability. Women want to be with a man who can provide and protect. There's a silly little term called alpha male. Women want to be with a tribal leader. Alpha male is a silly little term. The guy who led the tribe. He was a leader. Do you think the ultimate tribal leader is very reactive? Or he does whatever he thinks is right? Now, obviously, you want to be respectful and loving. You don't just want to dominate anybody. You want to have a healthy relationship on eye level, but you don't want to be that reactive. If she can make you insecure just by uttering a couple of words, she will lose interest. And before we go into these, there's a really important tangential social dynamic you also have to understand, which is that of value and comfort. Most things, your job basically when it comes to attraction is to build value, your perceived value in her eyes, and trust or comfort. Okay? Now, most things that build value decrease comfort. It's a seesaw effect. And things that increase comfort decrease value. For example, if you always agree, you're always super nice, or you are really highly emotionally reactive to her, which signals to her that she can control you, she trusts you in a way as a friend, but it decreases your value. So comfort goes up, but your perceived value as a potential partner goes down. If you are super non-reactive, she teases you, for example, oh, do you say that to all the girls? And then, well, if you were reactive, you might say, no, really, I don't. You start over-explaining yourself. You start justifying yourself. Instead of that, you can just say, no, only the attractive ones, or only when I'm in the mood, right? What happened here? Well, I was calm, I was confident, I was non-reactive. The less reactive you can be, the more you win. And again, you winning is not you winning over her, it is you winning together, because she wants to feel that attraction to you, which comes from her seeing that you are really non-reactive. Now, if we were to drive it to an extreme where you're 100% non-reactive, well, then you're dead on the inside. You're a robot, you're not a human being anymore, and you're not going to be able to connect to her. But if you're on the other hand, where most likely you are, you're too reactive. Even if you're confident in your career or your business or your hobby, I guarantee you it manifests itself in very subtle behaviors that you start reacting to her, which is going to turn her off. So being non-reactive actually decreases comfort a little bit, but it increases your perceived value in her eyes because it makes you more masculine. Your job in any social interaction with a woman that you want to go on a date with, who might end up being your future wife, is to build value first and comfort later. You can always recalibrate trust and comfort later. Now, let's take a look at a couple of different concepts in personal development, different theories, trains of thoughts, and leaders that will help you understand strain better. So Nietzsche, the strong man creates his own value rather than inheriting them. Yes, you can make an argument that you inherit values. You really choose what you value. That's not the discussion we're having today. The ideal is that a strong man, which you want to be, an attractive man, creates his own value. You choose what you value instead of letting society impose it upon you. So, frame, self-authored value system projected into the social world. The one who defines value defines the frame. Lesson, you defines values, defines reality, defines frame. Perception equals reality in the realm of social dynamics. Are you just letting society condition you? Social conditioning goes so deep, you don't even realize how much you've been robbed of experiences and freedom of expression in your life because you've just adopted thoughts and beliefs and value systems from society that no longer serve you. Now, social conditioning is also fantastic. It's great because it's allowing us to function in society. But you have to be very careful and do an audit of, why do I believe what I believe? And I believe this was Alex Hormozy who says, we believe everything except for we question everything except for the things we truly believe. Those we just believe. How many things about dating and women and dating apps and the world do you just believe that are limiting you about talking to people in real life, about what it means to be masculine? Do an audit. So here is this idea that it comes, the strength of your frame, the way you project reality basically, is, oh, by the way, I should probably go into this here for a second because I may have skipped the explanation of the first one, which ties into here. It's a lived, embodied expression of a belief. Because I was wondering, because I was talking to clients the other day, why is a frame not just a belief? Could we not just say it's a belief? Well, it's actually an expression and a lived, embodied expression of a belief. Because the belief might be, I'm the prize, okay? But let's say you can believe that, but if it doesn't come through in your body language, in your nonverbal or pre-verbal communication, she won't believe it. She won't buy into it. Now, I don't like this idea of I'm the prize, you're not. No, I'm the prize and you too, right? That's what a lot of people get wrong. A lot of this content on social media is very basic masculinity stuff that won't really serve you. look, on social media, on Instagram, you either find soy boy nonsense of just be yourself, just be a good boy, just be a listener, just be nice. Well, that evidently doesn't work. Yes, you're supposed to be kind, but there's obviously more to it. Or there's the other extreme where it depreciates the worth of women. And I'm not virtue signaling, but do you not want to, like, I cherish Fernanda so much. I make an effort to treat her as well as humanly possible. I ask her, how am I treating you every 6 months? What can I do better? Give me feedback. Extremely important. You want to treat her well. You want to have a loving relationship on eye level. You don't just want to talk down to her. So there's a healthy middle way, but it's a lived and embodied expression of a belief. That's your frame. It has to manifest itself in your physiology, in your nonverbal communication. So it also partially comes from you choosing the values, choosing what you believe in. Write down the following 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I going? And with whom? So going back to Tony Robbins' definition here, whoever is most certain, let me mark this one here. If there's rapport, there's no rapport, they're not, will always influence the other person. It's ultimately about creating certainty from within. And certainty is not just cerebral. It's not just a belief, but it's in your body. Next one. We'll get closer to this. This is going to be... These are amazing. You may have already taken a look. Trust me, this is going to blow your mind. I had tears in my eyes when I was writing this, when I was going through this. Next, the Stoics, there's this idea that there's the external events and then there's your internal response to it. But the external events don't actually create your own emotional reality. They're a strong invitation, as Gunther Schmidt, one of Germany's best psychologists, would say, but they're not actually the ultimate determinant of your mental and your emotional reality. You can choose your response. Perfect alignment with non-reactiveness. The Stoic ideal is frame control. It's calm, it's grounded, it's immune to chaos. Frame lesson, you control the response, you control the world, whatever she gives you. Sometimes women are going to kick you in the balls playfully to see if you can own your frame, own your reality. Are you going to go into hers? Come here closer. Are you going to go into hers, or is she going to come into yours? And every once in a while, you're going to go into hers because you're not going to be a robot. If she tells a joke that's really funny, I am going to laugh because you're not a robot. You're not going to pretend to be too cool for school. But more often than not, she has to be more reactive to you than you are to her. And if you think of this as a tactic, let me tell you something. If I drop this pen, gravity works. That force is at play, whether you believe in it or not. And the same is true with these social dynamics. They are at play whether you believe in it or not. And this is one out of many blind spots you currently have in your communication, how you currently suck. That's why women lose interest in you. Not you as a person. It's just a skill set. Nothing wrong with who you are. It's just a skill set. So we need to fix this. We're doing this today, okay? So she needs to go into your reality more than you go into hers, in a very, very simplified way. You could also make the argument that these circuits actually overlap. And if you have a lot of compatibility, you're both in the same reality, you both have the same beliefs most of the time. So the idea is there's an external event. She teases you, she gives you a test, a shit test, like a Gruen test, and you just remain calm, grounded, and immune to chaos. That's the idea. Calm, grounded, and immune to chaos. Jordan Peterson talks about hierarchy and competence signaling. Spelling mistake here. By the way, Fernanda did an amazing job, right? She spent 2 hours writing all this down. I had it all prepped on a whiteboard on Zoom, and then she wrote this all down. Amazing. So, social hierarchies form naturally, okay? Competence and order signal trustworthiness. Frame control is social competence at the emotional level. Women test for stability. So this one is interesting, right? Frame control is social competence at the emotional level because women want a man who's competent. And if she gives you a little test and you remain calm and grounded and certain, you believe more in what you believe than what the new information she presents you with. Now you might say, David, do you not have to interface with objective reality? Should you not have the open-mindedness to change your mind if presented with evidence to the contrary? Obviously. I'm willing to change my mind on anything if you present me with evidence to the contrary. You might think that aspartame is bad. No, you can actually drink 50 cans of Coke Zero a day up until you reach a level of aspartame that actually be bad for you. I didn't know that. Well, there's other stuff in there that might not be that great for you. But aspartame in and of itself is actually quite harmless. Cool. So change my mind. So obviously you want to have a general sense of open-mindedness for sure. But on a date, it's not about her bringing you new information. You're talking about ideas, constructs, and opinions. And she wants to see that you have a grounded and firm view of the world. So here's this idea that if you have frame control, right, then you're socially competent. And frame control doesn't mean controlling her frame. It just means controlling yours. We're getting closer. So we're looking at all types of these are all different angles at frame, so you get the complete picture. Because nobody has ever taught you this. You won't learn this anywhere else. Next, Robert Greene, amazing, brilliant author. These are all geniuses, by the way. Next, power flows towards emotional control and perception mastery. Perception is frame. You could say perception equals reality, but David, doesn't reality equal reality? Yeah, in a way, but in the realm of social dynamics, perception equals reality. And how she perceives you depends on your emotional control, largely. And not power in the sense of power over somebody else. Robert Greene, you should really read his books. I usually don't recommend too many, but he's a real genius. He understands a lot of dynamics that are human nature, whether you like him or not. He describes them in detail, and he doesn't necessarily say that this is great, that human beings operate in a certain way, but it is what reality is. So the fact is that if you're more in emotional control and you can control perception by owning your own reality, by owning your frame, it makes you attractive. Next, Naval Ravikant. Amazing. I can recommend probably, is there somebody here where I can't recommend? I don't know all these people perfectly, by the way. I gotta say that. So don't judge me if there's somebody here that you don't like. But this one, real genius, okay? He wrote a book called The Almanac, I believe. I recommend you read that as well. So, the ultimate power. This is getting good, guys. Pay attention. Naval Ravikant. The ultimate power is freedom from needing external validation. The ultimate power is freedom from needing external validation. If your self-worth is internalized, others naturally calibrate around your calm certainty. Again, frame lesson, freedom from needing approval is the highest frame. If you self-validate, if you produce certainty from within, if you give yourself that gift on a date, in interactions with women, if you don't care about her approval whatsoever, you respect her, you're loving, you're kind, but you don't need her approval whatsoever, that is probably the single strongest frame you could come from, or it is the single best thing that strengthens your frame. Because if she realizes you really don't care at all about whether she approves of you or not, that makes you unbelievably attractive. Try it out. David A. Hawkins, Levels of Consciousness. Yeah, there's a little bit of woo-woo. Maybe it goes a little bit far in some directions, but it's a very powerful book, Levels of Consciousness. I can highly recommend you read it. He goes into this idea of energetic calibrations, and there's that we have certain levels of consciousness. And shame and guilt and fear, they're lower levels of energy, lower levels of consciousness. And as we rise in our level of consciousness, the higher consciousness level, the more others align automatically. You don't dominate, you resonate. Sounds a bit spiritual and woo, but if you let it land, your unconscious mind, your nervous system responds to that actually very well. If you understand that, oh, there's peace, love, self-actualization, gratitude. The more you raise your energy levels, your frequency, if you will, for the objective realists out there, trust me, there's something to it. I don't know why it works, but there's something to it. The more others will naturally align to you. And this is very true. You can do everything right objectively and still not get the result if your energy is off. It's actually true. In the long term, if you're coming from a low energy paradigm, anger, hate, fear, sadness, or you got something unresolved in you, it's very difficult. Now, the good thing is this process, dating, is one of the best things to resolve it. A lot of guys say, I need to work on myself first before I can get out there and find the right one. No, this is the best way to work on yourself. working on your communication skills, your confidence, getting out there, going on dates, that allows you to resolve it. You can start meditating today and releasing things. Just meditating in a cave for the next year and a half won't do anything. Get out there now. Start dating now. Start the process now of finding the right girlfriend or wife. Life will never be less busy. Personal development is always going to continue. You'll never stop working on yourself. It's going to be a continuous process. And since you'll always work on yourself, you might as well start now with this and keep developing. Ray Dalio, billionaire, manages how many billions, gazillions of money. He wrote a book called Principles. One of the smartest people alive, probably talks a lot about this idea of a meritocracy, that in an organization, the best ideas should win. But regarding frame, principles and radical truth, radical transparency and truth create long-term stability. And by the way, these people didn't necessarily talk about frame. I'm taking some of their core concepts and I'm relating them to frame. I'm giving you a different lens to look at this concept so you get a holistic view of what it actually means. So this is about stability and transparency. A frame without truth collapses. Long-term frame control is reality alignment plus emotional steadiness. Truth is the ultimate stabilizer. You can't live in delusion. If she tells me something and I don't know, what would it be? Saying that, oh, calories don't matter. There's some people who say that. It's not about calories. Now, if you want to lose weight, it's just about calories. You theoretically never have to work out. I like working out. I can do 100 pull-ups in an hour. I did that yesterday. Today, I did a lot of bench. I did 225 pounds on bench, which is like 100 kilos, 4 reps. Then I did 4 sets of that. Then I did another 4 sets of 90 kilos. Okay, cool, fine, right? So I like working out, but it's not necessary for weight loss. But there are some people who say, oh, calories don't matter. Intuitive weight loss, complete nonsense. Because what's intuition? It's just an unconscious competence. You want to face reality, right? If you want to get dates, there's only 4 ways. 3, really. Dating apps, Instagram, approaches. That is reality. Yeah, you can use your social circle, but that's not going to be the primary source of you finding your girlfriend or wife. You will have to go and talk to women, be that on Hinge or on Instagram or approach them in person. There is no other way. And for example, it is also true that if my breath were to smell really bad, that's going to turn women off. No, I'm fine. You do want to face objective reality, but the closer your beliefs are to truth, the more powerful they are. Yeah, there's some people who are I'm German. Austria had a really famous evil leader, one of the most evil human beings in history, who was very convincing in his narration. So there are people who spew lies, but again, what happens? They always fail. They always fail. And they're suffering throughout. Their inner existence is miserable all the way through because they get punished. So you want to orient yourself towards truth as much as humanly possible, plus emotional steadiness. Because it doesn't serve you to have a logical debate and to be factually correct on a date, but not emotionally certain. Emotional certainty, groundedness, calmness, steadiness, that is the #1 currency. Next, Joe Dispenza. I know it's Dr. Joe Dispenza, but there's a bunch of other people here who have a doctor title, so we didn't mention it here because I didn't remember who was and who wasn't. You can rewire your emotional reality. Frame mastery, conditioning your nervous system to stay in high energy, calm states, no matter what the environment. You train your frame before the world tests it. You can't just roll up on the date and say, oh, perfect frame control right now, if you don't have the habits. If you don't meditate, if you don't go to the gym, if you don't get coaching, if you don't get feedback from some people, if you don't spend time with quality male friends, if your habits aren't on point that shift your emotions, that bring you up to higher emotional levels, your frame, your reality, when you get to the date, won't be that strong. And you'll be propelled into her reality. Or life gives you a challenge, and then you get pulled into a pendulum. Challenge happens, and then you overreact. Instead of responding, meditating, and saying, what would be the wisest course of action? Not reactive even to a life's challenge, but coming from a grounded place and ask yourself, what's the right thing to do? You don't want to be in this pendulum of action, reaction, action, reaction. You want to go beyond that and do what's right regardless of the impulse. Children do this. The parents tell them to do something, and then they live their entire lives, even as adults, children in an adult's body, defying what their parents' expectations were. Some kids really want to please their parents. That's how they live their lives. And other people are going to live their entire lives trying to punish their parents because they never got the approval or the love they wanted. But you're still in reactiveness. Are you doing what you're doing because it's coming from within, because it's authentic and it's a light and it just feels good, or because you're in reaction? When you're in reaction, snap out of it. So habits have to be on point to train your emotional reality, to train your state, to train new certainty. Next, Alan Watts, one of the greatest philosophers the world has ever seen, passed away many years ago. He talked a lot about non-attachment and play. Life becomes easier when you stop grasping and start dancing with it. Playful detachment is emotional mastery. The best frames are fluid, not rigid. You can't lose the frame if you never cling on to it. Alan Watts has this famous video on YouTube where he takes a bow, just shoots it in the air, and he says, what's the purpose of this? It's play. What's the purpose of anything in life? It's play. You won't get out alive. Yeah, with AI, and maybe you'll live forever. I'd hope that we don't, to be honest, because what makes life sacred is that we have a limited time. Well, would I like for us to live longer and healthier? For sure. But eventually, all you'll take with you is experiences. All the money you have will be gone. Everything you see, this watch, this suit, this microphone, everything will be gone. All you'll take with you is the experiences you have and the love you gave and shared. Jack Kornfield, one of the best meditation teachers in the whole world, says at the end of your life, you'll ask yourself this question: did I love well? Brandon Burchard says at the end of your life, you're going to ask yourself 3 questions. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? They are also really good. But did I love well? Did I give love? Did I receive love? Did I live? Did I have experiences? And did I contribute? So experiences are extremely important. Play. Now, how does this relate to frame and frame control? When you're on a date and she does something silly, just look at it as a dance. It's not so serious. Social media content derails people. Strong, masculine, dominant, frame control. It's fun. It's a mating dance. Don't take it too serious. Just giving you a little test. Have fun with it. She says something, you're like, yeah, right. Like, you look at women like these tigers. Rah! Instead of looking at them like a little kitten, like, meow. You treat them extremely well. You'll take care of them. And I'm not saying, are you comparing women to cats? No, I'm not. I'm taking a metaphor. I'm saying you're looking at a woman like a tiger. Rah! Right? It's scary. Instead of just saying, oh, we'll dance. We're dancing. Oh, I can see what you're doing. And it's not manipulation. It's not manipulative tactics or games. It's a playful dance. If you look at it like that, that relaxes you immediately. How would I respond to what you're saying if I knew it was a game, if it was a game of life? Not that she's trying to manipulate me, assumption of positive intent, remember, but it's just a game we're playing together, the game of life, the game of romance, the game of procreation. Next, Viktor Frankl, the ultimate test. Frame control. If you didn't know Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book about Auschwitz, something about meaning, right? I don't remember the title of the book. What was it called? Meaning, something with meaning. Anyway, he writes about, this is probably one of the single most important books you'll ever read in your whole life, okay? I usually don't give book recommendations, but since we're talking about these people, I might as well talk about it. Something about meaning. I don't quite remember. No, wait, where's my phone? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yeah, give them to me. I'll look it up real quick. Something of me. Viktor Frankl. We'll leave it rolling. Viktor Frankl. Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah, of course. Cool. Man's Search for Meaning. So he talks about how people went to Auschwitz, and there were people who were able to find joy in small little things like, I don't know what it was, some things in a soup. If somebody is genuinely able to find joy and beauty in the worst circumstances of life ever, well, then we can too. If you're ever worried about a problem that you have in life, by the way, read this book and you realize that you don't have an issue. Because a problem only seems like a problem until you're confronted with a bigger one, isn't that true? Part of frame mastery means creating certainty from within. So what do you do if you're struck with a challenge? She rejects you. Something happens in your career or your health or your family or your business. Yeah, or like a girl breaks up with you or you're going on a date. What do you do then? Well, you compare it to a bigger problem. Oh, Really? You got a breakup? Imagine your mother died right now. Imagine your son died. Oh, wow. If that were to actually happen right now, how would you feel? Would you be worried about her breaking up with you? Oh, no, not really. Okay, so it's not really a problem, is it? Well, it is and it isn't. We can prime the experience of it being a problem by what we focus on, our language patterns and our physiology. Or we can compare it to something much worse and then take that thing away and realize, oh, it was never that big a problem to begin with. Read this book. The Ultimate Test, Frame Control, Defining Meaning in Chaos. The man who defines meaning never loses power or frame. I like the idea of power over other people, but power over yourself. But there's this idea, right? Chaos. You don't know what happens, right? Maybe during the initial approach, or you're on the date. It's maybe a little bit awkward in the beginning. You create the meaning. You're not dependent on her approval or her positive signals to feel certain and calm within. An example of this is awkwardness. You ever felt awkward? You can stop feeling awkward right now. Awkwardness is a meaning you give a situation or emotions you experience. There's no AW on the chart of elements. Awkwardness does not exist. You can choose to never feel awkward ever again. Anything that's awkward could be funny. Like, I once farted in church when I was 13 by accident. I was super embarrassed. I wanted to die. Everybody was sitting around in a big circle. I moved and I farted. That was so embarrassing. I felt horrible as a 12, 13-year-old teenager. Being a ginger on top of that didn't help, right? But then, now if that were to happen, you obviously don't want that to happen. Be respectful, of course. Jesus, happened. If that were to happen again, I'd say, oh, funny. Anything that's awkward can be funny. You see, meaning. The meaning you give a situation creates your emotional reality, which then, in and of itself, has an impact on her because your emotional reality manifests itself in your nonverbal communication and in your actual behaviors in terms of your words or your actions. All right? Next, Eckhart Tolle. Fernanda's so cute. She put an R here. Eckhart Tolle, as we say in German. Eckhart Tolle. Also one of the best, him and Jack Kornfield, the best meditation teachers in the whole world. Presence and ego dissolution. Ego reacts. Presence observes. Frame collapses, or a frame collapse comes from ego identification. Presence restores dominance through stillness. Not sure about the word dominance, that can be replaced. Frame lesson. Presence is the silent frame everyone feels. Presence is the silent frame everyone feels. If you get attached with your ego, now, I can make a whole video about ego because it depends on how you define ego. Ego can be bad or it can be good. If we just define it with anything, you are attached to something, it's attachment. That's what makes you stiff. If you don't care, hey, ginger hair, ho, fine. If you're able to make fun of yourself and you're able to be present and playful and use a little self-deprecation and say yes and accept and amplify and you know how to handle these congruence tests, this makes you unbelievably attractive. But the more you're attached to something, right, the more you have ego identification, I need to come across as this suave James Bond. I know I'm standing here in a suit, but that's a professional context, right? I'm trying to professionally convey information to you. You don't need to be James Bond on a date. You don't need to play too cool for school. Oh, she perceived me as this masculine man. I'm super silly with Fernanda. Yeah, there's times where I'm really masculine, of course, but we're also super silly, fun, and playful. You gotta allow yourself to be super silly and fun and playful. Doesn't mean you need to become a clown, but the less you can have this rigid image of yourself, the more you can be detached from ego and just present, fully present with her. By the way, the less self-conscious you become, because you become more self-conscious and nervous if you're focused on yourself all the time. Tony Robbins says, the root cause of all suffering is you being obsessed with yourself. If you just focus on her, not staring or weird, but if your presence, imagine you're taking all your energy and you're turning it outward and you're putting it into the room and you're just present and you're relaxed and you say, hey, let's see what goes. Let's go. All right, let's have fun. That is an entirely different frame. Entirely different level of emotional impactfulness. Presence is the silent frame everyone feels. Next, Steve Jobs, he had something called the reality distortion field. When Steve Jobs said that the Macintosh needed to be developed in XYZ time, his software engineers or engineers came to him and said, we can't do it. It's too soon. We have so many other things. It's impossible to do it in a month. We need at least 3. He says, you have to find a way. And more often than not, they found a way because his belief was so strong, he had so much certainty that other people went into his reality and then they believed, they adopted his beliefs, right? Frame is the ratio of emotional and behavioral adoption, emotional includes beliefs as well, between 2 people, right? And it reveals whose inner world stays stable while others adjust. The others adjusted to Steve Jobs. The one who changes less relatively leads the sheer reality. He had this reality distortion field. He made the belief it was possible and then it became possible. Roger Bannister, that mile, I don't know what it was, like the 3-minute mile, 2-minute, like I don't remember exactly just being able to run a mile under a certain time. People didn't believe it was possible. Once he broke it, tons of people broke it in the couple of months afterwards, which was never done before. Once you believe it's possible, you're more likely to achieve it. And if you have more certainty, again, whoever is most certain of his rapport will always influence the other person. So you have the reality distortion field. His beliefs were so strong in bent perception of what was possible. Prove that reality is negotiable when conviction meets charisma. Interesting, yeah? A legendary frame turns the impossible into an inevitability. Isn't that cool? Proof that reality is negotiable when conviction meets charisma. If you can communicate in a charismatic way, and by the way, that doesn't have to be my way. My mentor, the guy who I learned from, by the way, we coached together, he's an absolute genius. He's Eastern European. He has a much calmer style than me. He has a very, very different style. But the best practices, the principles behind it are the same. That's why it works. This is powerful. Once you understand this, you realize, oh, you can use this power for good or for bad. If you're a good person, if you're a bad person, stop watching. Now, we have this guy. No idea how to pronounce his name, but the content's really interesting. Yuval Noah Harari, I apologize if I say it wrong, but this one, super interesting. Narrative as reality. Pay attention. Societies function through shared stories. Money, nations, religions, they're all collective fictions. Frame, it's a micro story. Whoever defines the story defines the world. Frame lesson, reality is just the story most people agree to live inside. Reality is just the story most people agree to live inside. And the bottom, the one who reacts lives in the other person's frames. If you can tell different stories and you learn to be less reactive, you can become unbelievably powerful in your communication, and you can do so in a very kind, warm, and loving way. This is how you create and sustain attraction while not trying to dominate her or some nonsense, but also by not being a pussy. Extremely important. Because if you don't understand this, and you probably didn't up until this point, women will lose interest in you. There's obviously more social dynamics that are at play, but I hope this was helpful. Share this with somebody who might benefit from this. Speak soon.